Hey, welcome to the Rain and Morale podcast. So, do you ever feel like screaming out in the office, on Zoom, or outside the school gates? For the love of God, come on, really? Then, if this is you and you're looking for an honest, fun, and frank podcast on life and business, then sit back and listen to me, Rain and Morale. I'll be bringing great people on the show to talk, share, and debate their life experiences and business challenges, keeping the show unpolished, but in a fun and unique British style, with sarcasm, tenacity, maybe a few swear words or tears. This podcast keeps it real, honest, raw, and removes the bullshit in the only way I know how, through authenticity and getting shit done. Think of it less like the Housewives of New York or Towie with the lipo and drama, and more like the house lives of the real world. I hope you'll take something away to be better informed, laugh, smile, or maybe even finally getting the confidence to shout, come on, really. So enjoy.
Hey, Winston, it's so lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me on the Rona Morale podcast. How are you?
I'm great, Rona. Great to see your smiley face.
Very polite for you. Well, guys, I wanted to introduce you to Winston White. So this is somebody who I have actually known for quite some time. But Winston is an ex-pro footballer, and he has done nearly 600 games in the UK with clubs like Leicester City and West Bromwich Albion. When he left that world, he then continued his education and learning, completing a degree, which is actually where we met. And since then, also an MBA. Winston, a little bit like me, spins a lot of plates and has an awful lot of business interests. But I think the one thing that has always maintained true is that it's always been around health and fitness and his passion for young people in sports. So much so that through a community initiative in the Caribbean, Winston, and congratulations, was able to receive funding from FIFA, which is fantastic. You also have your own personal training business, and you now reside in Florida, and you are also the vice president of the Sports Council there. So huge array of talent that you've amounted over the years, and I know that you've got some super exciting plans coming up in the UK around a community initiative as well, which I know isn't launched until a little bit later on in the year. So welcome again, and thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. What I'd love to talk to you about is really going back a little bit and kind of diving into that, how you felt coming out of that ex-pro world to the point where I guess you and I first met at university, and then how you've managed to continue that passion for sports, specifically grassroots, and how you've had to adopt your business certainly over these challenging times over the last 6 months. So yeah, really over to you. What was it like when you kind of came out of that world and you went into university?
Well, firstly, thanks for the big up there. That was really nice. And sometimes when people tell me some of the things I've done, it's almost like having an out of body experience, that you're actually listening to the story of somebody else. But to your point, when I had to finish, which is actually through a knee injury, I did my ACL, and although I could have come back from it because I was an extremely fit athlete, the time that you're out as a player, you start to think about the future. It kind of hits you very, very quickly that how vulnerable you are as an athlete. So, I was touching 30, well, just turned 30 when I got my injury. And I did try to make a comeback for a couple of teams, but I knew I just wasn't right because my game was always based on speed, power, and skill. I was a winger. And, and I lost that elasticity in my body, and I just felt that I'd done the best that I could, and I was never going to reach the dizzy heights that I reached. So I had to make some hard decisions. Although I'd been very conscientious about my future, and I'd been doing some courses through the PFA, who are a great organization who look after the welfare of the players. I still felt highly vulnerable when my career was over. And I also went through a little bit of a depression because, we've seen it over the years with entertainers, and I class footballers as entertainers.
Yeah.
when you have done something from the time you actually know yourself to the point where you can't do it anymore, you do go into a massive depression. And I actually dealt with it the only way I know how, is to go off and party for 6 months, right? Because fortunately, I had a bit of money in my pocket, because football obviously is a well-paid job, and I went off to Hong Kong, and I just lost the plot, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
And the point where I came back home, and my brothers, who were, I've got three older brothers, and I worship all of them. One of them said to me, look, he gave me that word, that come to Jesus moment, where he says, look, you've lost like a stone in weight. You just don't look well. You need to sort yourself out. And I then sat down, looked in the mirror and realized that I was still young, bit of money in my pocket. What can I do? I don't want to
Mm.
be just another statistic and be like a lot of footballers who, who end up running a pub or something. I wanted more than that. So I decided that I was going to challenge myself in the most challenging way possible. I challenged my body, and now I'm going to challenge my mind.
Yeah.
So I was in Birmingham at the time. My last big club was West Bromwich Albion, and I decided I was going to inquire about getting a degree, or the steps towards getting a degree. And I knew that it was something outside of my reach at that point, not thinking that, I could have gone all the way. But anyway, I said I'll give it a shot, because I'm not very fearful of things. I think it's people that put barriers in front of you, not
Yeah.
not yourself. And so anyway, the bottom line of it is that I went to the Birmingham College of Food, where I met you, and I spoke to a few of the tutors there, and they encouraged me and advised me that I could do anything I wanted to do. And when they all, almost coached me to a degree, to the point where, I felt I could do it. And really, from that moment onwards, within the first few weeks, when I met people like you, Rona, and the mutual friends that we still have to this
Yeah.
day, it gave me what I needed in terms of almost like an institution that I could rely on again. Because when you play as an athlete, you are institutionalized. That's
Hmm.
all you know. You go into the changing rooms. You have a lifestyle that other people in that changing room can relate to. You can relate to you. You can relate to them, and you feel comfortable in that space. And that's what I was craving for. That's what I wanted. I wanted that camaraderie, that team spirit, if you will, and that end goal, which I think is what every entertainer wants. And when you lose that, then you lose something really critical.
Do you think
And
it was like? Do you think it was like a conscious or a subconscious decision that, I guess, when you found a different institution, that it wasn't a big thing for you to sit there and say, oh yeah, I'm an ex-pro footballer, and we never had any of that from you, and so we just knew you as Winston, and that was it, and we admired you for your character and who you were. Was that a conscious thing?
yes, very much so. Very much so. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be judged by my abilities. Well, firstly, as a person, I wanted to be judged, and then secondly, I wanted to be judged because of the achievements that I went through. You know, over the last few years of my career, I got a number of different clubs, because I was trying to find a place again. In football. And I found when you went into these changing rooms, you had to prove yourself very quickly, but you could do that through your feet.
Mm.
You didn't necessarily have to like the people you worked with, so you did it through your feet. And because I was a talented player, I got across that milestone very quickly. So, but with the college thing, I didn't know my abilities. I didn't know. It was totally an alien scenario for me. So meeting people like yourself and others, Jazz and Nikki and Carolyn, the people that you still know to this day, it was a really great way of building a friendship and a relationship, which is also based on gathering knowledge as well, because I was really naive when I went to university. I mean, I
Ditto.
remember, yeah, yeah, exactly right. But I remember the first assignment we were given, and I was like, oh my God. I mean, what the hell? I was like a deer in headlights. I was really anxious, and I remember sat in the canteen, the refectory, and I think I was talking to yourself, and I think Nikki and Jazz. I think, yeah. Anyway, I was really picking your brains.
Yeah,
How do we go about this? How, what's the methodology, and stuff like that. Well, you guys, with all respect, you'd come through the educational system a lot
sure.
later than I did, so therefore you knew how to go about it. I didn't. I had no idea. So I was, to be honest, I was faking it before I made it. I really was.
I love that.
And I hold my hand up to it, and it was only probably after the third assignment that I realized, okay, this is a method, methodology here. There is a process here. There is routine here, which is what I was always comfortable with. And once you actually learn those systems and processes, then you realize, hey, hang on, this ain't
Yeah.
that bad. And that's really how I got through it. Now, that's the first time I shared that with you, Rona. And I can be totally honest about that. I was absolutely terrified, but in a different way to
Yeah.
anything I've done before.
No, and I massively appreciate that, and I know that I'm taking advantage of this opportunity, and because we're recording it, albeit we could edit it out, but I won't, because I knew there must have been a reason why that wasn't a major thing, and actually, I guess the friendships back then were built on just new people meeting new people and the rawity of all of that, and I think that's probably what made the bond so strong, and I think likewise, although we'd all come out of the education process, I think going to a big city, it was super nerve wracking, and understanding how the psychology of it all works, and finding your way through a city and people. But I think one thing that's always stood out for me, I think, has always been that bond that somehow, I don't know, that you and I have maintained over the last sort of 20 years. So kind of show both of our
25
ages
years.
now.
25 years.
Oh my God, stand corrected. 25 years. But I think, okay, so I suppose moving forward on that, you have always what seems like being really resilient, and you've never given up. Sometimes I've been like, what's Winston doing now? What's he up to? But as we said at the intro, there's always been sport involved in this. So talk to me a bit about why you've kept that passion for specifically football, but certainly sports and kind of grassroots. What keeps you going?
Well, I look at when you're soul searching, when you're looking for that next sort of challenge, if you will, which obviously was a big challenge knowing what to do after my football career. You have to do a lot of deep soul searching. What got you to the point to where you are now? And there were a number of different things that I could always rely on. And one of the things I could always rely on was my family. I'm from an amazing sporting family. A brother was a pro boxer, fought for the British title. Another brother who's semi-pro footballer, played for some very good local teams like Kettering Town, Wisbech, Burton Albion. He's a good player. And
Oh,
then
my hometown.
there you go. So, and then I had another brother who was a black belt in martial arts. Played got involved in a lot of tournaments. Two sisters who are incredible athletes, track and field athletes. So I had that
So it's part
sort
of your
of
DNA then, really.
yeah. But we all worked very hard to sort of get to where we got to as well. I mean, the skill without the will is nothing. So we all worked very hard to have, to maintain that talent. Anyway, so you had to dig deep and find out what you really enjoyed in life, and what drove you, what was the passionate thing. And like I said, I was very passionate about my family. I was very passionate about sports, and incredibly passionate about what the sport gave me.
Mm,
And, I think every person on this planet should have hope in some way.
yeah.
And, you know, kids, if kids don't have hope, then there's only one way they're going to go. And I've always been a great believer. If you give kids hope,
Yeah.
Hope that they will achieve their dreams. They will fly, you know.
Do you think, though, for those young sports people, that hope is merely or just a platform, or is it, because not everyone's going to make it, not everyone's going to make it pro, but are we talking deeper than that in terms of that hope to at least give them a platform to perform, to exercise, to socialize?
Yeah, listen, hope it comes in many different forms. Yes, you're right. Not many people are going to make it to the level I played or even higher, in whatever. It's not about that. It's about what you achieve through actually taking part in something that's a team game.
Yeah.
It's about achieving something where it could be golf, which is obviously predominantly not a team game, or tennis, but it's the processes and things that get you to that point where it might be just be able to hit a ball 3 times over a net in tennis. If you couldn't do that a month ago, but you get the opportunity to get a tennis racket and you can do that, that is achievement. Now I know that's very minimal on the scheme of things, but what I'm talking about is the striving towards a goal, and those things, those behavior patterns, when you're young, really can take you into adulthood and give you that real positive systems that I keep talking about.
So what
So
would
that
you say, like your top three things that when you were given that opportunity, hope, exposure, has always been able to carry you through adversity and keep going?
Okay, so the one thing I would say is I would not be where I am today without the support of great people. My family support initially was, just, well, priceless. And then I was given the opportunity to play for my hometown team, Leicester City, by the coach who was there at the time, a guy called Jimmy Bloomfield. He believed in me and help me believe in myself. And then thirdly is almost a combination of all the other people post football. You know, Sometimes adults in particular don't realize how powerful some of the things that they can say to people, how much they make a difference.
Yeah.
And I've been a big believer in, that person who smiles at the girl at the checkout, that, that person that is working in, I don't know, in Marks and Spencer's, who's walking around looking very happy, and you just give her a smile or something like that. It, that could make her day. And I've always been a big believer in that people come in and out of your life, and they can add value. It's down to you whether you take that on board or not. I've had some great words of wisdom by sitting on a bus next to somebody for like 30 minutes. And
I love those combos though. Sometimes you just randomly sit on a train and you smile, connect, and talk.
right,
I remember once coming back on a train from London, and there's this guy looking really, really lost. And I said, "Oh, are you okay? Can I help you?" And it turned out there's this guy who'd flown in from New Zealand who was an author and written a story about a wartime dog that just happened to be in the village just up from me. And, I ended up telling him which, train station to get off. I booked him a taxi so to get into the location. And that whole story just, we're still in touch. He sent me a copy of the book, and those moments just stay with you, don't they?
they do, absolutely. And sometimes we're fast tracking through life at the moment. Everything is like sort of instant gratification. I mean, COVID slowed that down a little bit, the virus and everything. So we now have time to reflect. But honestly, I've always been a big believer in that, those moments, that moment where you look up at the sky and you realize that you are something, you're part of something greater than you. I know it sounds very grandiose to say, but it's actually very true. And if
Yeah.
the time you knew me in university, I mean, people never used to understand why I was always upbeat and happy. They never saw me really that. I know I wasn't on drugs, Rona, as you actually. But I was happy on life. I was just glad to be back in the game, if you will. And the appreciation that they were there. Because we went to university and people actually wanted to help us. You
Yeah.
know, tutors didn't want us to fail. They wanted us to succeed. And that was the environment that I grew up in. My parents, my family wanted me to succeed. I went into the institute that is football. They wanted me to, they wanted to succeed. The team, you know, succession was based on my part in it. So being involved in the university world was always something that I felt I could relate to, you know, after a period of time when I realized I could actually do an assignment. Um, but
what,
then
what did you get again? Is it a 2-1?
I got a 2-1. Yes, mate.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, so, but I see life like that as well, you know. I see people, there's a lot of good people out there. I know there's a lot of very questionable people, and you're one of them. But, but there is some very good people out there. And I take a proactive effort to look for those good people that can help you.
And I think that's something that kind of really resonates with me, because I think you talk about people are there in time, and I found since becoming a parent that those are the stories that I talk to my girls about. And it's kind of like, some friends are meant for life, others are meant for moments in time, and some of those
Right,
friends will bring amazing experiences, and
right,
others will teach you everything that you don't want in a friend or a partnership or a relationship. And so it's sometimes hard, but you kind of have to embrace those bad times as well. You know,
hmm
you're doing lots of different initiatives to try and keep that going, because I know you were trying to get young people from the UK out to the States, weren't you, on footballing programs?
right, right. Yeah, and that was gathering really good momentum, and it's still. I mean, that's still going to happen at some point because, you know, I've been in the States now, what, nearly what, 6 years now, and the facilities in terms of you know, colleges and universities are second to none. I mean, just extraordinary. You know, these things are like palatial palaces, a lot of them, you know. And so, you know, I would say that if a a talented athlete, because they have the, as you know, they have sports scholarships here. If a talented athlete is looking to test themselves, not just physically, but also academically, then it's an option to come over here.
And do you think
And
that's a better option, in the sense of, whilst you're pushing yourself physically towards a sport that you are good in, actually combining that with the mental side and the education to kind of help you ready for real life, I guess?
yeah, yeah, there was a combination of a lot of things there, Rona, because I know when I was 14, I was given the opportunity to travel for the first time outside of England, and it was a tournament in Amsterdam. And you know, my parents couldn't afford it initially, but then there was a realization that, you know, what this could do. And my older brother who played football, realized it as well. And you know, they managed to pay for me, and I went, and it changed my life. It was the first time I played in a huge stadium,
Yeah.
and it gave me those hopes and aspirations. I was playing against teams from another country, and, you know, spoke another language, but we had that one common language, which was the language of football, and it was great. And I realized very early that, you know, that the talent that I had could help me to travel, allow me to travel, and get the resources for me to travel. I realized that really early.
But
So
what do you think would have happened? You know, because we're talking about supporting people who might not have, you know, the funds. If your mum and dad, you know, and brother weren't in that situation where they could have scraped it together, the story could have been very different.
right. Well, I think with my family background, I think I'd have been a professional in some field. There were a number of different fields that have interested me, even when I was playing football. And I definitely would have had something that would have been a longer term career than football. That's for sure. It would have been something in law, something in the you know, medical profession. You know,
Yeah.
I'd have probably have got into you know, health and fitness a lot earlier, so I'd have probably been established in that. But I would have definitely have been a very able and law-abiding citizen.
That I don't doubt. So, how have you had to adapt those plans over the last 6 months with bringing those athletes from the UK to America, and obviously that kind of, was put on hold. What do you want to talk to us a little bit more about how you've adapted and then what the future holds?
Yeah, so so the whole program was really an exchange program. It was getting talented kids from with let's say not as much privilege as others, so getting
Yeah,
them from the UK into the US, and an exchange program the other way as well, because a lot of Americans love to travel to Europe. So it was going to be an exchange program, and I set the program up so that it was actually going to be kicking on around this time. So anyway, the fact of the matter is COVID, kind of put those plans to rest. But what it's allowed me to do is redefine, a business model. So I'm really excited that I'm actually now working with a number of high performance former athletes from all different genres of sport. Football obviously being the predominant one, but I've
yeah.
got snooker players in there. I've got jockeys in there. I've got cricketers in there, rugby union, rugby league. I've got some very high profile names that I can't actually name any of those names until the launch, which is going to be hopefully 1st of October. We're looking at now,
Oh,
but
amazing.
yeah, but it's going to be an initiative that really is going to be ring fenced around around UK clubs and sports clubs in particular, and we're going to be raising money through an initiative with businesses.
Yeah,
We're going to identify those clubs that are high achievers but have limited resources, and the reason that I'm targeting that sort of world is because um, in football is a working class sport. With all the money in football, it is still a working class sport. And the most talented players are those kids that just kick a ball against the wall for hours on end, which is
yeah,
exactly what hours on end, non-stop, refining their skills, and so there are a lot of those sort of what I call those uncut diamonds all over the UK, all
yeah,
over the UK. So, but they miss out because of the lack of opportunity because their parents couldn't afford,
yeah.
you know.
And
And
do you think the way kind of kids are more socially now with a lot of technology and they're not, I remember I would disappear from home in the morning and I wouldn't come home till late at night and I'd be here, there and everywhere. And I compare that to my daughters now. Do you think that will have an impact on future talent coming through?
I don't think it will. I think that if you just look at the players who come through the system even now, the most talented players are those ones that they have a god-given talent and they continue to work that talent. Now I don't want to get too technical about the game of football, but if you look at a Lionel Messi, for example, and Cristiano Ronaldo, the two, obviously without doubt, the two most talented players in the world at this moment in time, they work so hard at their game. That's the one common denominator that they have. I mean, you know there's always a debate who's the most talented. It doesn't matter. Those two people work unbelievably hard in matches, and they're constantly looking for their edge. So you can see they've honed their craft, you know, in their own special way. They've found that particular skill, that particular ability that's individual to them, and they've worked at it and worked at it. So they've maintained longevity in the game. And that's my point, is that you can have all the coaching in the world and this and that, but you can't really manufacture a footballer. You can't really do that very well. They have to go out there and figure it out themselves. I always look at the analogy of, if you put kids out to play, they will figure out games themselves. If you just start putting lines around them, then they have less enjoyment.
Yeah,
Now, it's a basic thing, but it's actually true. So you've got to give kids their freedom and their wings to find and define themselves, because they'll always figure it out. And myself as a talent scout, looking at these players, and I have my own agency, I look for that raw talent, not the stuff that you can see they've been coached on. I look at other things. I look at their ability to come back from failure. I look at their leadership qualities. I look at those different things, how they integrate with their teammates, how they communicate, all the things that are almost like social skills
Yeah,
and
yeah.
personality traits as well. That's what I look at. I think the ability will look after itself. You can work at that, but there's the other stuff around it as well. And I've been successful in finding talent. So
And I think
the program,
I think that's probably where it crosses over then into business, because you talk about the rough cut diamond, I talk about, the good eggs, the golden eggs, and
right,
finding those people who are just have an incredible work ethic, kind of put their hand up when things go wrong, and they keep coming back, they keep trying and trying and trying. And I think it's those life skills, isn't it, that shows a level of maturity at such a young age that you wonder, okay, why is it that there's certain sports that are predominantly more elite, whereas football tends to be, like you say, that working class kind of sport. And female football at the minute is obviously incredible. I think Brazil actually has now started paying its national players the same as the men, which I think is
right,
incredible. What would
right.
be your view on? So recently in the press, we've had the two young England players who decided they were going to invite some women into their hotel, and obviously they're under a bubble, so they've been kicked off and sent home from Iceland.
Right.
What do you say to those? What do you think about that? Because this morning I was fuming. I was like, oh, for sakes, like seriously, you have been given an amazing opportunity. I don't know these individual lads. I don't know if they've come from, working class background or anything, but wow, you're sat there in an England camp and you go and do something like that, that's all been recorded, and now your asses are back in England.
Well, yeah. I mean, first things first. We don't know the full story. To be fair, so the full story needs to be heard before we make assumptions on certain things. And I think it was more to do, from what I've read anyway. It's more to do with the the virus side of things, the social distancing side of things. That was one of the factors. They were told in no uncertain terms. Now, it's a learning curve. I mean, the two players are very talented players, Foden and Greenwood, very
Yeah,
talented boys. And you know what? They'll be better people because of this. I'm sure. Especially that there are two big, high-profile clubs. And on the scheme of things, yes, it's a lack of discipline, but let's be honest, there's worse things that have happened. And like I said, they'll come through this better, stronger players mentally.
yeah, and I think anything like that where a mistake has happened, and the rules are the rules. I think when you look at that in terms of leadership and businesses, you're not then hauled through the UK media or global media for it. It's normally just within who you are. So it is very easy for every single one of us to judge and have an opinion. But I guess I always come back down to that simplicity. It's like, if that was me and I'd have been given that opportunity, maybe it's more work with them through the PFA, through social media, and through understanding, look, if you were to do this, these are the implications for you and the team, and we don't want to see that happen.
Right.
But anyway, it's interesting for young athletes now. There always seems to be something like, how do we make sure that they don't make what is ultimately a silly mistake? It is a silly mistake. No one's died. No one's gone to prison.
It's a schoolboy error. The other thing that I would say is this, is that there's been so much stress and strain on society in terms of being isolated, right? And all the things taken away, entertainment, outside entertainment, all these different things. People are craving for social interaction again. I know it's not an excuse, but I mean, a lot of these players, they're shacked up anyway, and you get cabin fever. And again, it's not an excuse,
No,
but
I get that. I totally get that. And I think I have to be brutally honest. Back in the day when I was doing quite a lot of events, you know, I saw lots of people deliberately trying to engage in something with a sports person that would get them into trouble.
Right.
And, you know,
Absolutely.
so there's always that element as well. And I think that was a real eye-opener for me for many, many years. I'm sure I could probably write a book on that myself now. But yeah, there's always two sides, and you never know. These two young lads could have been completely hoodwinked. But anyway, I think coming back to what you're going to be doing with these ex-athletes, you know, super excited to know more about it when you launch. Please do absolutely share it with us.
Absolutely.
And whatever I can do to kind of help raise the awareness of that would be fantastic. And I think a lot of what you've touched on today around, you know, institution, coming into a university, being very candid and honest, thank you, because, you know, that's really what I want this podcast to be about. And I think some really nice discussion topics there around family, great people. And I think COVID's, I hope, reinforced that, you know, who we've surrounded ourselves by.
Right.
And that kind of hope, really, hope for the future talent that you're going to help support. And also that hope that we can all come through this in a much better place. And hopefully I'll get to see you at some point
Absolutely.
in the next
Well,
year or so.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm desperate to come over to the UK so we can get this thing launched. But you know, all in good time. You know, and people like yourself, Rona, you know, I've always felt I could bounce ideas from you, and some of the things that, you know, you've discussed with me, I've really put into practice. So I appreciate you, and you know, how our friendship has grown over the years. And you know, there's times where we've had big gaps where we've not spoken to each other for a while, but as soon as we pick up again, it's like yesterday again. It's great.
No, absolutely. Well, listen, Winston, thank you so much. I massively appreciate it. I hope you're having a great day in Florida. And yeah, best of luck with the initiative. And I will speak to you really soon.
Thanks, Rona. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So that's it. You've made it. The show's over. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've been able to take something away, maybe solve a problem, or just know you're not alone. Here's hoping it made you smile with a few laughs along the way. Please feel free to find me on all social media channels, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search the Rona Morale Podcast. Have an awesome day and see you next time.